देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 9, Bhishma is passing away in the presence of Lord Krishna. Text number 18. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyaha Narayanaha Puman. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudaha Charati Vrishnishu. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. Adyo Narayana Puman. Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Gudascharati Vrishnishu. Eshaha, this. Why? Positively. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Sakshat, original. Adyaha, the first. Narayanaha, the Supreme Lord, who lies down on the water. Puman, the Supreme Enjoyer. Mohayan, bewildering. Mayaya, by self-created energy. Lokam, the planets. Gudaha, inconceivable. Charati, moves. Vrishnishu, among the Vrishni family. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. This Sri Krishna is no other than the original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Translation with repetition. This Sri Krishna is no other than the original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni just like one of us. And he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as is ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. The mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in 4th chapter, 2nd verse, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. The very same system is accepted universally as truth. But only the false arguer speaks against this system. For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky, and they say that they travel to the other side of the moon, and men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak, and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientist, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. Here is an authority speaking about Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayana. Even an impersonalist like Acharya Shankara had said in the beginning of his commentation on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. The universe is one of the material creations, but Narayana is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. Bhishma Deva is one of the 12 Mahajanas who know the principles of transcendental knowledge. His confirmation of Lord Sri Krishna's being the original personality of Godhead is also corroborated by the impersonalist Shankara. All other acharyas have also confirmed this statement. And thus, there is no chance of not accepting Lord Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead. Bhishma Deva says that he is the first Narayana. This is also confirmed by Brahmaji in the Bhagavatam 10:14-14. Krishna is the first Narayana. In the spiritual world, Vaikunthas, there are unlimited numbers of Narayanas. who are all the same personality of Godhead and are considered to be the plenary expansions of the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The first form of Lord Sri Krishna first expands himself as the form of Baladeva. And Baladeva expands in so many other forms such as Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Narayana, Purusha, Rama, Narasimha, etc. All these expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva. And Sri Krishna is the original source of all plenary expansions. He is therefore the direct personality of Godhead. He is the creator of the material world, and he is the predominating deity known as Narayana in all the Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, his movements amongst human beings is another sort of bewilderment. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that foolish persons consider him to be one of the human beings without knowing the intricacies of his movements. The bewilderment regarding Sri Krishna is due to the action of his twofold internal and external energies upon the third one called marginal energy. The living entities are expansions of his marginal energy, and thus they are sometimes bewildered by the internal energy and sometimes by the external energy. By internal energetic bewilderment, Sri Krishna expands himself into unlimited numbers of Narayanas and exchanges or accepts transcendental loving service from the living entities in the transcendental world. And by his external energetic expansions, he incarnates himself in the material world amongst the men, animals, or demigods to re-establish his forgotten relationship with the living entities in different species of life. Great authorities like Bhishma, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. Thus ends the Transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So until now, the past few classes, we saw the various reasons which Bhishmadeva was explaining as the cause for Yudhishthira and Pandava's troubles. And in the last verse he says that this to be accepted as an inconceivable plan of the Lord. And therefore Yudhishthira Maharaj should follow this plan, which is inconceivable, but it is a plan of the Lord. Now, starting this verse, he is explaining about the Lord's position. And here he is saying, Eshaha vai Bhagavan Sakshat. So he is ascertaining, certainly and positively, he is saying, this Bhagavan Sakshat. And Prabhupada translates this as, this Sri Krishna is no other than the original personality of Godhead. So this is an important point to note, that who can recognize the original personality of Godhead? It is not possible for an ordinary person to realize or recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Krishna is walking amongst all of them. And here it is mentioned that he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni. Charati Vrishnishu. He is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni. But not everyone is able to see that here is the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Similarly, it is not possible for all of us to also recognize that the Lord is present everywhere. He is present in His holy name. He is present in His Archa form, the deity form. It is not easy. Although the Lord is present, but to really know that the Lord is actually here is not an easy thing. And therefore, Prabhupada writes that Bhishma Deva is one of the Mahajanas who knows the principles of transcendental knowledge. The principles of transcendental knowledge, although they are available in the books, they are not realized, they are not fully understood. And therefore, Bhishma Deva is so great, he is a Mahajana, because he recognizes this fact of who is Krishna. Similarly, we can see in the prayers of Kunti Maharani, she recognizes who is Krishna. She is not seeing him as nephew. She knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, Bhishma Deva also knows Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says is a qualification for one to be called as a spiritual master. Say Krishna Tattva Vedta. So one who knows the science of Krishna consciousness is considered to be a spiritual master. Not that he is in this form, whether he is a sannyasi, whether he is a brahmachari, whether he is a grihastha. These are not the categories by which one can say whether one is a spiritual master or a Mahatma. Here, Bhishma Deva is fighting against Pandavas. He is fighting against Lord Krishna. But because he knows the science of Krishna consciousness, because he knows the principles of transcendental knowledge, because he is a great devotee of the Lord, his instructions we are learning. And now we can see from what he is speaking, as we know that speech is the way to recognize how advanced one is or how foolish one is. So here we can see that Bhishma Deva knows the ultimate truth. He knows that Sri Krishna is no other than the original personality of Godhead. And further he says, Adyo Narayana Puman. And he is further saying that Krishna is not only the original personality of Godhead, but he is also the first Narayana. Sometimes people have confusion as who is the Supreme? Is there one God? Are there many gods? If there is many gods, who is first? Who is supreme? So sometimes, especially Mayavadis, they also think that Narayana is a supreme personality and Krishna is an incarnation of Lord Narayana. But here, Bhishma Deva is saying, Lord Krishna is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. Prabhupada translates the word Puman as the supreme enjoyer. And then it is being further said here, Mohayan Mayaya Lokam. Now, although he is present, but everyone is bewildered. No one is able to recognize that person who is walking amongst us is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, why is that is happening? Because of his self-created energy. So, Mayaya, by his self-created energy. We see this word also in Atma Mayaya. So, by his own potency, internal potency, one is bewildered. One does not know that here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada brings so many points. And the first, interestingly, Srila Prabhupada doesn't try to explain about Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Krishna as the first Narayana. But rather, Srila Prabhupada begins by stating that the Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is a deductive process. It is very interesting. Why would one not discuss about Krishna directly, but discuss about the process of acquiring knowledge? So Prabhupada is saying that there are different methods of acquiring knowledge. And the Vedic system in the Vedic system, the method of acquiring knowledge is deductive process. So there are two processes basically, the inductive process and the deductive process. The deductive process is the descending one, and the inductive process is the ascending one, Aroha and Avaroha Panti. So there are these two processes by which people try to acquire knowledge. And the Vedic system is one which comes from top down. That means there is an authority, and the authority in case of the Vedic system is the Supreme Lord himself. So from him, the knowledge is transmitted to Brahmaji, the first disciple, and then from there in our parampara, Narada, and so on and so forth. So evam parampara praptam. So this knowledge is coming in disciplic succession. So we are not manufacturing knowledge here. We are not creating any new knowledge. We are just receiving the knowledge. So Prabhupada gives an example. Prabhupada says, man is mortal. Like yesterday we were also discussing, and what are real truths. And one of the teenager told that death is for certain, is a fact, is truth. So one may say, I will not accept this as an authoritative fact, but rather I will go on testing, is this person dying, is this person dying, is this person dying, is everyone dying? So if I try to acquire knowledge by this method, I need to find everyone and see whether is he dying or is he not dying. Is there someone else who is missing, who is not dying? Just like someone may say, oh, this tree is for 5,000 years here, so maybe this tree may not die. So he may get a doubt. So the inductive process of knowledge does not lead to conclusive understanding. It leads to partial understanding. And it can also lead to different interpretations or different ideas without actually able to conclusively state what is actually true. Therefore, this method of knowledge is not accepted in the Vedic system, not accepted to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if one wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original Personality of Godhead, the inductive process of knowledge is not beneficial. Even if one spends millions and millions of lifetimes. Even it is said, even if the travel at the speed of light, mind, and try to acquire knowledge in the inductive process of acquiring knowledge, one cannot understand the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, it is very important that if one wants to receive this knowledge about the Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead, then one has to follow the deductive process of knowledge as given in the Vedas. So one has to accept a bona fide authority, that is the Supreme Person, Lord Sri Krishna, or his bona fide representative who can explain the scriptures which are again spoken by the Lord or his devotees. Through that method, one can acquire knowledge about the Supreme Lord. And therefore, these statements about the Lord are again in Bhagavatam are not randomly chosen, but from the great authorities. So Bhishma is a great authority, and therefore his statements are included in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada is giving another important example of how authority is necessary. So this is not dogmatic. Some people may say, this is your creation. This is some random statements made. No, Prabhupada is giving an example of how to identify a father. One cannot know the father without the help of mother. So mother is the authority to tell who is the father. It is not dogmatic that mother is saying he is father. No. She knows the truth about who is the father. Similarly, we need to choose the right authority who knows the ultimate truth. If you don't choose ultimate authority, we become our own authority, or we accept someone else as an authority. And Prabhupada is giving an example of how modern scientists or astronauts, they go in a spacecraft and they go to in space, and they say they have gone to the moon, other side of the moon, and so on and so forth. We have traveled there to see whether they actually landed in the moon, but we tend to believe them. So Prabhupada is saying that everyone is accepting some form of the authority. So why are they believing? They are not actually seeing it by their perception, but they are accepting that as truth. But as far as Vedic knowledge, they will say, show me everything. So even to see the other side of the moon, even if they went, let's assume, even in that case, one has the process that is given to go there. Similarly, the Vedic knowledge also gives a process to see what is being said in the Vedic knowledge. But if one does not follow the process that is mentioned in the Vedic process, how can one see? So this is, again, Prabhupada is emphasizing that each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. So Vedic knowledge also gives a process as how to see it, how to understand the Vedic knowledge, how to realize the Vedic knowledge. But they want to see that, but they deny at the same time the Vedic knowledge. So how does it work? It doesn't work. And Prabhupada is saying, this means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientist, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. So this simple principle of not knowing how to acquire knowledge the right way leads to a lot of chaos. People are misfed with various misconceptions, and therefore people are bewildered, even about simple things, because there is no authority. It's very unfortunate because of some sort of democratization of the media. Anyone can post anything. He need not be an authority. They can say anything, and if there are followers, people will accept that as the right thing. If there are more views, people think this is the right thing. There is no conception. Is it authoritative? Is it bona fide? Is it right? This is very important to always see. Otherwise, you will be misled to think something to be something else. And therefore, so this first Srila Prabhupada is establishing that unless we don't take to the system of authority or disciplic succession, we cannot understand the Supreme Absolute Truth. This is a very important point, and this is what distinguishes from the other methods where people think by any ways one can understand God. No. The Shabda Praman, or hearing from the authoritative sources, is the way to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth. Further, here it is being said that Bhishma Deva is then Prabhupada goes on to explain the first point of the verse, Esha Vai Bhagavan Sakshat. So Prabhupada is saying, here is an authority speaking about Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayana. And furthermore, Prabhupada is also saying, even an impersonalist like Acharya Shankara has said in the beginning on his commendation of Bhagavad Gita that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. Narayanaha paro avyaktat. So, this is important that once we accept authority, we need to also establish what is authority. So we can see here, scriptures are a common authority, both for the Mayavadis and for the devotees. For the personalists and for the impersonalists, scriptures are an authority. So here, Prabhupada is also quoting from impersonalist Acharya, like Shankaracharya, and Prabhupada is saying even he accepts that Narayana is the supreme personality of Godhead, or the personality of Godhead, and he is beyond the material creation. So Prabhupada is first trying to establish that Narayana is accepted as a supreme, as a personality of Godhead, and Bhishma Deva is saying here that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So it is very important, we need to, when we discuss about the scriptural statements, it is important to see the evidence in the right light. So we have to see what does the other scriptures say. What does Srimad Bhagavatam say? What does Brahma say? So as we know, in Brahma also corroborates the same fact. In fact, in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it begins with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadi Asya Yatha Anvayad Itaratas Ardeshu Abhignasvarat. So very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam is starting with stating that Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, is the original personality, the supreme personality of Godhead. And he is the source, maintainer, and annihilator of the entire creation. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, from the very beginning, is telling who is the supreme personality of Godhead. Similarly, in the Brahma Samhita, in the very beginning, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha. Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha. So, although there are many, many controllers, Prabhupada says each one of us can be said to be a god because we can control some things. And therefore, Prabhupada says we do not say back to God. We do not say God, we said Godhead. Because Prabhupada explains in one place that he's the chief. Just like Prabhupada says, in this country there are so many Americans, but there is one chief American, the president. So similarly, in one sense, everyone is a controller, but there is one supreme controller. And therefore, Prabhupada says we use the word Godhead, the chief. In another place, Prabhupada explains the word Godhead by saying that it is Vishnu Tattva. So, Godhead refers to Vishnu Tattva, and the supreme personality of Godhead, or the original personality of Godhead, refers to Krishna, who is the first. And the example that is given to understand this further, the example that is given in Brahma Samhita is that Deeparchar evahi dashantaram abhyupetya Deepayante vivritta hetu samana dharma yastadrik evahi cha Vishnu taya vibhati Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So Deeparchahi, the flame of a lamp. So it is said that you can light another candle from the first candle, and it can light another candle, and so on and so forth. So in terms of the quality, they all seem to be similar. They seem to be having equal power. But there is one original candle which is lighting all other candles. So in one sense, all the Vishnu Tattva are of similar potency, but there is one original candle, there is one original personality who is the origin, and rest all are all his expansions. So that is also said by Brahma in Brahma Samhita. So there is, in one sense, all the Vishnu Tattvas are of one category, but there is still a distinction that one, that is Lord Sri Krishna, is the original personality of Godhead, and in terms of the potencies. But then again, there is a distinction in terms of the rasa, in the loving exchanges that the Lord has. And also, as Rupa Goswami mentions, that Lord Krishna has 4 qualities which no other form of the Vishnu Tattvas also possess. So in that sense, the Acharyas, we have to hear from the Acharyas and the Shastras as how they establish who is the original personality of Godhead. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Ete Chamsha Kalapumsa, Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. So, although there are so many incarnations, they are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions, but amongst all of them, Krishna is Bhagwan Swayam. He is the original personality of Godhead. So, there are different scriptural references which all state the position of Krishna as the original supreme personality of Godhead. Although there are many incarnations of Vishnu, but amongst all of them, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada is further explaining about how there are unlimited incarnations, there are unlimited expansions of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada explaining Lord Krishna expands as Baladeva, and from Baladeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, and Narayana, and so on and so forth. So they are all incarnations of the Lord. They are of similar potency, but Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And further, it is also explained in Brahma Vimohana Leela, where Brahma kidnaps the cowherd boys and the cows, and later he recognizes that how Krishna, by his multipotency, omnipotency, he could expand himself into these many cowherd boys and cows, and the Brahma is bewildered there. And in his prayers, he also mentions that how Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. In fact, Prabhupada is quoting this verse in this purport. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14, which Prabhupada refers to as a corroboratory factor, where Brahmaji is also saying that Krishna is the original Narayana. So in this verse it is said, Narayanas tvam nahi sarvadehinam atmasi adisakhila loka sakshi Narayanongam narabhu jalayanant nat tachapi satyam na tavaiva maya. So here it is said, Brahmaji is saying, O Lord of Lords, he is addressing Krishna, you are the seer of all creation. You are indeed everyone's dearest life. Are you not therefore my father Narayana? Narayana refers to one whose abode is in the water, born from Nara, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And that Narayana is your plenary portion. All your plenary portions are transcendental. They are absolute and are not creations of Maya. So here it is said that Narayana is your plenary portion. So Brahma is also recognizing that Krishna is the fountain, is the source, but his plenary portion is Narayana. So in this way, there are various references which Prabhupada talks about as how Krishna is ascertained to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the third section that Prabhupada explains in this purport is that of bewilderment. The living entity is bewildered. I mean, if someone is just like the President of America is walking amongst us, it would be very difficult to believe that is it really possible. Sometimes people become very shocked when they see a famous personality walking amongst themselves and they see, oh, this famous personality is in the street, is it real? Sometimes they don't believe. Similarly, if the Supreme Lord is walking amongst us, it would be very difficult for us to believe that the Supreme Lord is actually here in two hands, just walking like another human being. Is it really true? So why is that people are bewildered? Why is that they can't understand or fathom? So here in the purport, Prabhupada explains, although in the verse it is said only because of one reason, that is the Maya, the self-created energy of the Lord, Prabhupada is mentioning further by saying that because of two reasons. One is because of the internal energy of the Lord, and other is because of the external energy of the Lord. So let us look at the external energy of the Lord. Tribhir gunamair bhaver yebhi sarvam idam jagat mohitam nabhijanati mam ebhya param avyayam. So deluded by three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So when the living entity, who is actually transcendental to the material nature, but because of coming in contact with material nature, is inflicted with different modes. The modes of passion, ignorance and goodness. So when one is afflicted by this, one cannot know the position of the Supreme Lord. So the external energy of the Lord bewilders the living entity to not know one's own constitutional position and the position of the Lord. The whole world is enchanted by three modes of material nature. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord Krishna. In this material world, everyone is under the influence of these three gunas and is thus bewildered. So here it is clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita why one is bewildered. So influence, as long as one does not come to Shuddha Sattva platform, one does not transcend the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness is favorable to understand the Supreme Lord, but one has to transcend even that stage of goodness. Only then Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, the knowledge of the truth about the Supreme Lord, will be understood. And therefore this process of Bhakti Yoga is so wonderful, so beautiful, and especially this the Pancharatrika Vidhi and the Bhagavata Vidhi, this both process simultaneously, when done nicely, one very quickly elevates from the lower modes. And in fact, one can rise to the transcendental platform. So these two processes are very, very important. And if one follows these two paths, these two parallel paths, which Prabhupada has given for us to practice, if we follow them sincerely, then we can rise above these modes. Without that, it is not possible to appreciate, realize, understand the transcendental subject matter. We can, to a certain degree, appreciate by hearing, but to realize, to see, to come out of the bewilderment completely, it is very important to take to these processes very strongly. And here it is said that sometimes, so one is the external energy, which is the cause of bewilderment, and sometimes it is Lord's internal energy, by which he also bewilders his devotees, like Mother Yashoda. She does not know that here is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as her son. So Lord bewilders so that he can enact his pastimes with his devotees. So not because the devotees are under the three modes of material nature, but here because the Lord, by his internal energy, is bewildering them to believe that their son, that the Lord Krishna is their son and not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by both of these reasons, one can be bewildered. But in the case of a conditioned living entity, one is bewildered because of the influence of three modes of material nature. But here we must recognize that Bhishma Deva is beyond the bewilderment. He is not bewildered about the position of the Supreme Lord. He is very clear as who the Supreme Lord is. And therefore he is saying, Prabhupada writes here, great authorities like Bhishma, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. The mercy of the Lord and the spiritual master is very essential to actually Divya Gyan Hridaya Prakashito. By the mercy of the spiritual master, the transcendental knowledge will be revealed in our heart. So it is very important for all of us to seek mercy of Guru and Krishna by sincerely following the process that they have given. So when we follow the instructions that they give, we become recipient of their mercy. By rendering loving devotional service, we become recipient of the mercy. So when the mercy comes, then all these bewilderments will vanish and we can further appreciate the glories of the Lord and engage intensely in devotional service. I'll stop here and see if there are any comments.